Hi, my name's Matt Widgery from FramedPlanet.com. Today I'm going to be discussing the thorny issue of the Fuji X Pro 2. Is it brilliant? Is it the best thing in the whole wide world, or does it fall short of the mark? So if you've clicked on this video and read the link to the title of it, there is a strong chance that you are a Fuji fan of some description. You either have a Fuji camera or you would like a Fuji camera and you want to know whether or not the X Pro 2 is worth it, or you might even have an X Pro 1 and want to know if it's worth ditching that old and faithful friend and jumping on board with the new one. Well, this isn't a review. I haven't got a camera yet. There aren't any, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get one. Fingers crossed for that one. But I'm going to give you my opinions on it as a professional photographer who is considering whether or not to get the X Pro 2 or not. And here are some of my thoughts. First of all, there's quite a few things that I personally think are missing from the X Pro 2. I was slightly disappointed when the specs were released for this camera just a couple of weeks ago that there isn't going to be a tilty screen on the back. This is the one thing that I absolutely adore on my X-T1. And although there are a few stick-in-the-muds and misery guts out there who don't want to see these things on professional cameras and think it's for consumers only, bar and humbug, I say to the lot of you, because I find it really, really useful. When you're at weddings, for example, to be able to kind of lift the camera up high and get sort of shots of the dance floor, or put the camera down low and get interesting shots of the bride as she's having the confetti thrown over her and things like that. This is all stuff that in the old days you had to get your trousers muddy for, or kind of stand on a chair and risk breaking your neck. Now you can do it just by tilting the screen, and I think that's a very, very good thing. I love it, as I said, on the X-T1, and recently, if you click on the link that's on the screen now, you'll see the video I did where I took an X-T10 to a wedding as well, compared that to an X Pro 1. And one of the things that came out in the X-T10's favour was the fact that it had the tilty screen. I love it, and I was really hoping that that would be one of the things that I would find on the nice new and shiny X Pro 2, and it's not there. Also, Fuji, where's the 4K video? Dudes, come on, it's 2016. This is the time you need to be embracing these new formats and allowing us to future-proof the content that we make. Not only for the people out now that have got the 4K tellies and things like that, but for people that look at this stuff in 5 years and 10 years time, when nobody will have an HD telly anymore. It'll be as old hat as a cathode ray tube in black and white. Not only that, but Fuji has been a bit crap with video since the inception. For example, we don't have in-body image stabilization. We have to rely on the lenses. And that's fine. If you've got 4K, you can actually do a lot in terms of wobble protection by cropping into from 4K to 2K, or from 2K to HD, and actually crop in and get an image stabilized picture out of that, high resolution content. It also allows you to get sort of like a digital zoom effectively. If your output is going to be in HD and you're recording in 4K, you can actually crop into that image and get different focal lengths, and it looks like you've got different cameras working when you're only using one. And that, for something like a YouTube channel, is really, really important. Now, I know that these things are not important for everybody, and I know that the X Pro line has firmly tried to establish itself as a stills shooter's camera. It's not dealing with all these sort of fancy things like videos and flippy screens and all these other kind of stuff. It is, it's billed itself as being, the ultimate tool for doing stills photography. Well, I'm sorry, but that's bollocks. This is exactly the same thing that the Nikon DF tried to do. It failed. Nobody bought any of them because everybody realized that whenever that came out in 2013 or whatever it was, even then, nobody wanted to carry around a separate camcorder and a DSLR. They wanted everything in the same package, and they didn't see why they had to not have that. There was no reason that sensor couldn't read video output. And so it was just frustrating, and for that reason it failed. And even Leica, the last bastions of old school technology, they're now giving you video in all of their cameras, and it's a good thing too, and I welcome it with open arms. So those things were disappointing. As for the rest of the specifications on the X Pro 2, when it was launched, a couple of weeks ago now, to be honest, there was nothing on there that was terribly dramatic or exciting. I think the only thing really that X Pro 1 users really would have wanted when, if we could have had a wish list of things when the camera first was launched in 2012, it would have been that better autofocus. And okay, we've got that. There are now 77 phase detect autofocus points and 273 in total, including the contrast detect ones all over the sensor. But the phase detect stuff still only covers 40% of the image. It's still a cluster in the middle. And that these days seems to lag a little bit behind where the market's going, where you have these kind of hundreds of these phase detect focus points scattered all over the entire of the image. And especially with the layout of the buttons on the back of the X Pro 2, where you've got this little joystick thing, which, by the way, I think is going to be a brilliant implementation. I can't wait to try it, where you can actually use the joystick to control where the autofocus point is, so you can guide it up into someone's eye. But if that eye is outside the 77 clusters in the middle, it's still only going to be using the contrast detect, which, although is better and uses modern algorithms and so forth, still lags behind in terms of speed against something like phase detect. So that was a little bit disappointing. I mean, it's not disappointing. It's going to be good. It's going to be great autofocus. But a lot of us who were frustrated with the X Pro 1's autofocus when it came out went and bought an X-T1. So we've already got that. We don't need anything particularly better than the X-T1 in terms of autofocus. I don't think it does a perfectly good job. The X Pro 1, in fact, with all the firmware updates, although it's not terribly fast, it is, it's a lot better than it was. And so having good autofocus is somehow, it just feels like, well, yeah, you're supposed to, rather than being, wow, thank you, which if it would have come out in 2013 and had been like the sort of next incremental step up, I think we'd have lapped it up with much more aplomb than we're currently receiving the news from Fuji that, oh, okay, it's got better autofocus. Well, yeah, it probably will. It's kind of a little bit of a moment. And the other thing is the 24 megapixels. Well, okay, that is roughly where we're going now with APS-C sensors. Everything seems to be moving towards that, but frankly, I don't see any practical need for having the 24/16. There's nothing that I do as a professional where that extra 24 megapixels is going to mean the difference between me booking a particular job or not. It's kind of, it was good enough on the D300 when I had 12 megapixels. It was certainly more than good enough when I had 16 with the X-T1 and X Pro 1. And okay, 24 will give me slightly finer details. Okay, good. I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. It's just not the sort of thing that is, so exciting. So when all of that is said and done, and it is going to be, it's a £1,700 or £1,500 camera. It's not going to be the cheapest thing in the world. Is it going to be something that, I'm going to be bothered with, frankly, having already got an X-T1 and an X Pro 1? Well, the answer probably is yes, except I might get the X-T2, which I guess is probably going to have the same technology but in a different form factor. But the reason why I will upgrade to these things, first of all, with the X Pro 1, I just do love the form factor of the way that camera feels and operates. And so to be able to have that with the newer autofocus in it is just going to be a really, really good thing for me. And I just think that even if it's going to give me an extra 1% of shots that I can make with that autofocus system, that is worth it as a working professional to be able to get those shots faster. It's just something that, although it's an incremental improvement, is something that we would value as professionals. If I was just shooting for fun with it, either, it was just a second system and I was still shooting maybe Nikons for my day job and it was just something I was going out and enjoying in the evening, would I go and spend the £1,300-1,500 on it? Probably not. But it is better, and that 1% of shots, or 0.5% of shots even, is worth that over the course of a year or so. So from that perspective, it is definitely good. The other reason that I will be looking seriously at the camera is the weather sealing. It is the one thing that means that I don't use my X Pro 1 nearly as much as I use my X-T1, and it goes way beyond the focusing, and that simply is the fact that it doesn't have the weather sealing. So I think that's a very good thing, and for professionals, that is the way to go. And because this is the pro body, the flagship body, the build quality is undoubtedly going to be a little bit more robust than the X-T1. And maybe that's a reason why they didn't go for the flippy outy screen thing. Maybe it is just a robustness issue. It's possible. I mean, I haven't managed to break my X-T1 screen yet. touch wood, but you know, it is something that could go. So that's another reason. So for those two things alone, it is, for a professional, definitely worth considering. However, the reason why I might hold out a little bit longer for the X-T2 is purely subjective. Me, I'm actually left eye dominant, and what happens if I hold a left eyepiece camera up to my face and I'm left eye dominant? This happens. So what happens is, all I do is I smush greasy nose prints all over the back of the screen. I can't see what's going on. It's a pain, frankly. Whereas with the X-T1, the form factor of that, which is much more like a DSLR, it's got the viewfinder in the middle. Less of my face is covered up, and it just feels slightly more comfortable. You know, if I was right eye dominant and I could do this business. And I'm trying to train myself to do that with this camera. Actually, it's really hard after years of putting the left eye up to the camera. But this, where you can frame with one eye and keep the other eye open, I like the idea of that, and I like the idea of, you know, being able to talk to my subjects while I'm taking the pictures and things like that. It is something I'm trying to get used to, but it is counterintuitive, and so I don't know, you know, but. The X Pro one is still my favourite camera. It's got soul in a way that very few modern cameras do. It really does make you want to sort of use it and pick it up and hold it, and especially when you're using proper old manual lenses on it as well. This is a Nikon, is it 50mm or 24mm on this one? It's 50mm on this one at the moment. You know, just the lovely dampened feel to that focus ring, which I do prefer to the fly-by-wire on the Fuji focus system. But anything where you've got like a proper aperture ring, it just feels proper. You know, it really does feel nice in the hand. And so having the X Pro 2, which is the kind of modern updated version of that I can take out in all weathers, you know, and shoot with better autofocus, is just going to be a really good thing. It does also have slight improvements in terms of the low light ability. It will now natively go up to 12,000, whereas the other one would only go up to 6,400. You know, I mean, that's 6,400 is normally fine for most occasions, but there have been occasions in very low lit receptions for weddings where any improvement in ISO is just welcome. And again, it's one of those arguments where, you know, you don't probably need to go as far as something like the Nikon D5, where 3 million ISO, unless you are, you know, working for the CIA and just want to spy on people. It's kind of not necessary for most people, but for those occasions when it is useful, having a little bit extra, I wouldn't say no to. But it's like resolution, you know, it's like the 24 megapixels. It's nice to have, but it's not a be all and end all. And definitely, if you already own an X Pro 1 and you're not using it professionally, and those minor increments, those like 1% extra shots or 0.5% extra shots over the course of a year, it really doesn't matter to you, I would definitely consider very carefully before lashing out a huge amount of money on the X Pro 2, unless you shoot in the water all the time and it's raining where you live and you do landscapes and you like the weather sealing and that kind of stuff. So that's it. You know, I probably will be getting one. If not that, then the X-T2. But they're my thoughts on it. They're completely unfounded anything. This is gut reaction stuff because I haven't actually held a camera in my hand. As soon as I have, I will update this video and give you my thoughts from a practical standpoint when I've actually tried one of these things out. But for now, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Is it something that you have been waiting for all this time and are just delighted by all the features? They're exactly what you've been looking for. If not, what are the things that are missing that you would have put in there if you had been Fuji making this camera? Leave me a comment below. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers.